Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed time to talk about hotels and tourism, which certainly Vietnam has been in the spotlight for the last 12 months. I mean, it's hard to say the flavour of the month, it's certainly the flavour of the year. And I've been doing this role now for about 5 years, and each year there is a hot market, and certainly, yes, the last 18 months, a lot of our clients have been asking us, what's going on in Vietnam? Should we be investing there? Should we be developing there? And it's certainly both. Last year, double-digit arrivals, 10 million foreign arrivals, which was fantastic. 11.5 has been forecast for this year, and as you saw earlier with Stephen's slide, we're already up around about 30% just in the first quarter. We will easily get that number, barring any sort of unforeseen events, and likely to double that number to 20 million by 2020. So what I want to do today is actually talk about the Southeast Asian markets, starting with the popularity contest, which MasterCard does this index every year now. They've been doing it for 3 years, and what it shows is it gives you an indication of how arrivals have been in terms of international, and also the daily spend, the nightly spend. The numbers haven't really changed too much, with the exception of Bangkok and Singapore, which have been oscillating between first and second place. Singapore has actually done it a little bit harder in the last couple of years. Arrivals have dropped off, but Singapore has their annual events, the Grand Prix and the Air Show, and numerous events that bring back repeat visitors. And this index is all about repeat visitation, and where Bangkok truly exceeds many of these other countries is one, that it gets back the visitors. I mean, myself included, being Singapore-based, I would probably go to Bangkok once a quarter just for a weekend. The food and beverage scene is certainly developing. It's getting a lot of that return business there, and it's certainly cheap. I mean, when you compare it to Tokyo, which is an amazing city, once you've seen the sites, you probably don't really need to go back there more than once or twice. Seoul has certainly dropped off a little bit with some of the disagreements it's having with China in particular. Kuala Lumpur, again, in terms of Southeast Asia, is doing reasonably well with the Malaysian ringgit devaluing. It's certainly more enticing to get a lot of new business coming from, increased business coming from Singapore and certainly Indonesia. As you continue along, I mean, the top 10 ends at around about 7.5 million arrivals, and the question is, how far away is Ho Chi Minh? So, I mean, Ho Chi Minh is sitting on around about 5 million. And it's safe to say that it's probably about two years away before maybe getting into this list. Two things. Certainly, we need to improve repeat visitors into this market, and that's going to come with developing the food and beverage scene, and certainly infrastructure is an important thing too. Getting people in easily and wanting to return. So, discounting that domestic tourism is ultimately very important in driving tourism more broadly in any market globally. The international arrivals number truly shows the importance and the actual strength of any market. So if you pay attention to the red bars in particular, that's showing the change from the previous year, last year to 2015 in terms of overall arrivals, including 2013, 2014 numbers. Vietnam, as you can see there, has certainly led the charge. Around about a quarter of that market has been alone Chinese inbound. That will probably move to around about a third of future inbound over the next 2 years. They're growing certainly in numbers, but the Chinese are driving all these markets. Every one of these markets you can see in front of you. Indonesia in particular has certainly bounced back fairly strongly. They had some travel advisories the last 2 years, so a lot of the Australians stopped going there at one point, but the Russian ruble has certainly appreciated to what we've seen the Russians come back to the Bali market. And essentially the Indonesian market is Bali. Philippines, again, corporate market in particular, Manila, which has got a strong BPO support following, while the resort markets have been fairly flat. Singapore has had a couple of tough years, as I've mentioned there, but last year was actually just up under 8%. So the Singapore Tourism Board has been very active in trying to promote Singapore to a lot of the regions in terms of those events and growing and more importantly getting back the Chinese market, which largely abandoned Singapore over the last couple of years. So if we take a first quarter perspective to see how it's going, look, it hasn't really changed too much in terms of last year's annual figures. Myanmar certainly bounced back very quickly, but Myanmar have also changed the way in how they record arrivals. So maybe that's a little bit stronger than it should be, but certainly Indonesia's had a very strong start. They've introduced new flights to India and certainly Japan. So the Japanese and Indians are going straight to Bali now. The Russians are back there. Cambodia, Philippines, yes, no real change from the past sort of couple of years. Thailand's the interesting one. Last year there was a major crackdown on the $0 tours with a lot of the Chinese groups. So what happened was essentially is Chinese groups can come in, they pay nothing for the actual flight, for the tour, and then they're forced to go to various retail vendors and spend up. So there was a major crackdown on that, and it really impacted Thailand overall. They're getting around that now, and they're certainly coming back. But there were one or two other events that happened last year that shut down the market for 1 or 2 months. I mean, particularly the passing of the king comes to mind. But it's a very resilient market, Thailand in particular, and it does bounce back very quickly. Malaysia's been largely flat. Corporate oil and gas not in a great state, and certainly leisure hasn't really moved too far either. So let's talk about hotel performance now. These are RevPAR numbers, which is revenue per available room, which takes into account occupancy of the hotel as well as the average daily room rates. So we'll start with the good news stories. And actually, Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi market-wide were first and second up until last month. This is year-to-date May data. Bali Luxury's actually taken over the two markets, up almost 20% on last year. And again, for the two key reasons of it, the Russian market is back occupying luxury properties in Bali, and the Chinese and Australians are also coming in as well, although they tend to support the mid-scale there, which is up at around about 7%. Hanoi is a market which is not seeing a lot of new supply. It's coming, but it's certainly running at a fairly healthy 80% sort of market-wide occupancy. Ho Chi Minh a little bit lower, but we're about to see the sort of supply wave coming in. Kuala Lumpur is actually doing a lot better now as compared to previous years, a market that is seriously suffering with supply issues, a lot of new stock coming in and very difficult to grow rate. The Bangkok markets, as I was saying earlier, with the crackdown on the $0 tours, that's certainly impacted the Chinese inbound. And as we sort of continue on to, I guess, the almost hard luck markets, where it's safe to say that Singapore is certainly at the bottom. It's at the trough now. It hasn't done tremendously well for the last sort of 18 months. A huge supply wave that we've seen. We've seen about 4,000 rooms come in last year, and roughly about the same to come on this year, and that will be it. We will not see any more new supply come in for the next foreseeable future. But very confident, as I mentioned earlier, with the Singapore Tourism Board and actually promoting Singapore globally. It's a major regional hub. It has those events. It's got a thriving food and beverage scene along with Bangkok that's very quickly developing, and it will certainly generate enough business to pick up that slack. And where we're seeing a lot of this new supply in Singapore in particular is a lot of areas are actually regenerating. So we're getting new product. We're not really getting much of the same. In terms of the pipeline overall for Southeast Asia, to put in perspective, what is widely reported is the number of new rooms that we're about to see come into the two key markets, being Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi within Vietnam. But granted that existing supply is way below some of these other very well developed markets, you can see how it sort of sits in the perspective that, you know, Ho Chi Minh City, we're seeing around about 3,000 to 4,000 rooms due to come on by 2020, and a similar amount, or probably a little bit less, in Hanoi. Just turn our focus now to the investment side of hotels. This is a 10-year time frame where we've actually projected investment across Asia Pacific. You can see the red bars there, I mean, particularly from about 2013 onwards, where the hotel market, the hotel investment markets really began to open up. Japan has been a stellar performer, largely a legacy of the CMBS market that sort of came to an end and generated a lot of investment activity. The grey there is Australia, and Australia has been a true benefactor of the Chinese inbound investment into hotels. Australia in particular has a lot of good opportunities, a lot of stock on the market, where the unfortunate case in many of these other markets you can see here is just the lack of opportunity to invest into hotels. Hotels are not a highly liquid market compared to obviously the other sectors where we see numerous deals. We're lucky to see probably about 20 to say 40 hotels sell across Asia Pacific in any given year. In terms of Vietnam, it's that bright blue there in sort of 2016 where you can see, look, we've seen one or two particular deals. I mean, one we were, as JLL were involved in, being the Nam Hai, which is now the Four Seasons. We were privileged to be involved in that transaction, but not a lot of activity generally, but we expect it to certainly pick up. We now have a dedicated hotels team that actually sits in Ho Chi Minh City within JLL, and watch the space, basically. In terms of the price per key metric, which is typically how we talk about the value of hotels as opposed to rate per square metre or what, so be it. Over the last sort of 17 years, if you took into account every transaction, and this is in US dollar terms, what has sold across Asia Pacific typically was around about $100,000 US a key back in 2001. This has very sort of quickly risen to around about 460 to closer to 500,000 per key on average, because it's not unheard of that we're seeing transactions actually occurring in markets like Hong Kong and certainly Singapore and Tokyo that are well double that and well above $1 million US at key. In terms of some of the key transactions, you'll all have access to this presentation so you can see the details and more clarity, but certainly the second half of 2016 we saw a number of transactions that amounted to around about 2 billion, the top 10 that is amounted to around about 2 billion USD a key, roughly around about that $500,000 mark and below is typically what we see in markets like Australia, and certainly above that in some Asian and North Asian markets that are development plays. Some of these hotels are being converted into higher and better uses such as residential. And over the first half of this year, the deals we've actually seen take place have largely been driven by the Aussie markets and certainly Hong Kong. I mean, the top two there are development plays. They will be converted to alternative uses and actually rebranded. The Hilton South Wharf in Melbourne, which closed back in March at around about 430,000 a key. 4 Points, Sheraton, Central Park, and another transaction which we just closed recently, the Intercontinental Double Bay in Sydney, which which was an all-time record for a suburb within New South Wales in Sydney at 740,000 USD a key, and a lot closer to $1 million Australian dollars. So, just to sort of take a bit of a look at that, where we're seeing the markets more broadly going over the next 12 to 18 months. In terms of trading performance, international arrivals are obviously the key driver, not discounting that domestic is very important, but the increased airlift that we're seeing come in across many cities. We're seeing the introduction of low-cost carriers. Take for example a particular market like Phu Quoc, which is starting to see a lot more direct flights that are going to open up regionally. They're about to announce a direct flight from Bangkok, I believe. That will soon follow with flights from potentially Hong Kong and certainly Singapore as that market continues to grow, and that's going to certainly drive a lot of the arrivals. Visa exemptions are certainly another huge precursor to strong inbound, and we're seeing that here with the renewal of the visa exempt for a lot of the European markets to June 2018, and certainly currency depreciation. Playing a big part in a market like Malaysia now, which is quite cheap, certainly to visit. The supply-demand balance, which is basically markets like KL, which are seeing so much new supply coming in and very cheap rates are driving business more broadly, and we're sort of seeing that over Asia Pacific actually coming more into balance. China's still a standout, but we're not sort of concentrating on China in this medium, but a lot of other markets, and particularly Singapore, will see that balance and meet that equilibrium sort of come close over the next 12 to 18 months. The strong drivers, though, of tourism more broadly, certainly China. Wherever China is travelling, wherever Chinese groups are travelling, that is driving tourism. And also the Russian markets are very strongly making a comeback in the last 6 to 9 months. And we're just seeing that, in particular in Bali, in Phuket, in Nha Trang, select markets that are high on their list. Infrastructure spending is also a major promoter of tourism, and we're seeing that here. Okay, so we're seeing road to rail, we're seeing airports. In Thailand, we're seeing a lot of billions of dollars by government going into airport infrastructure to open up new markets and grow regional business. One thing I also haven't mentioned about Singapore in particular is the flight cruise tourism, which it will potentially open up and promote a lot more inbound arrivals and spending for Singapore with Royal Caribbean and some of the agreements they have in place with the Singapore Tourism Board. We're going to see a lot more arrivals coming in. We've got the new T4 that's about to open, which is Terminal 4, which is the budget terminal. Another good driver of the Singapore market. And the alternative accommodation, which basically is Airbnb and some of these other non-hotel operators that are operating in the space, we're often asked about the true impact, and it's mixed. It doesn't play a part here, it doesn't play a part in Singapore, it plays a huge part in Tokyo, it plays a huge part in Hong Kong, but overall, and that's just Asia, overall, we are seeing that roughly about 10% of total room nights sold in some of the gateway cities of Asia is now being allocated by Airbnb and some of those other similar operators. In terms of investment, we will continue to see M&A activity. We're reading about it all the time in newspapers. The large-scale operators, owners, Accor, who are they going to buy next? That will continue. And since about 2014, we've actually seen around about 30% of the market, or 1 million rooms, have actually changed ownership. So that's not going to change anytime soon. The fourth point I'll get onto in a minute may have something to do with that, but it's probably just delaying it, not halting it altogether. But the capital markets are generally very active. The issue is, where are the opportunities? There are many buyers out there for very well-performing hotels. The issue that we have is certainly identifying the vendors. Last year, total investment into hotels within Asia Pacific was around about $8.5 to $9 billion US. We expect that that's probably going to be around about 10 to 15% down, and it's due largely to that second point. We're just not seeing a lot of deal flow. The fourth point, which is the policy shift on the Chinese outbound, that is certainly making some impact on particular deals that are involving mainland groups that are trying to get certainly capital outside of the country and into offshore transactions. We're aware of a number of transactions that it has actually impacted, but at the same time, there are substantial reserves in offshore markets from Chinese buyers that remain very much unaffected and are still dealing and acquiring. The Intercontinental Double Bay in Sydney that I mentioned earlier was actually acquired by a private equity group out of Shanghai. So not a huge impact, but certainly affecting some deals. As far as timing, no announcements by the Chinese government at this stage. We don't expect to hear any lifting of the curbing or all the rules to at least potentially Q4, if not Q1 next year. And just the strong domestic weight of capital that we're seeing in this market, Indonesia, Singapore, that is out there and certainly ready and willing to acquire the right property. If you look up Global Hospitality Research Hub, you can acquire any of our research, not only mine, but certainly my global counterparts as well. This is actually floating around, which is the Hotel Destinations Asia Pacific. Please take a copy on your way out. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is Adbury and myself are very pleased to announce that we'll be releasing a white paper which is essentially the future of Vietnam hospitality and how we see the market going. We certainly aim to debunk many myths about what we're seeing certainly happening today, where we see it going. We also profile the markets in terms of the key corporate markets, the leisure resort markets as well. That will be arriving in your inboxes over the next few days, so please take the time to have a read of that. Essentially, I mean, just to give you a quick snapshot of some of the key points, and I've mentioned these already. I mean, we're talking about the international arrivals, and we're very confident we're going to exceed that number by 2020. Strong North Asian support, the Russian inbound market, which will continue to support arrivals overall. Vietnam is the second largest investor in infrastructure as a percentage of GDP, around about 6%. So we've actually identified all the projects in terms of what's happening by government. I mean, we've got 2,000 kilometres of highways, airport investment, and then we've also got the private sector, which is heavily investing in the airlines themselves. AirAsia is about to make a major investment into that airline. Tony Fernandez is very, very, bullish on the strength of the Vietnam market. The best thing about tourism that I always say when I talk about Vietnam is the golden demographics. I mean, a quarter of the population is that sort of pro-millennial age group, and they will generate so much demand over the next 10, 15 years, not only from the domestic homegrown brands, but we're seeing all the international brands making a huge impact on the market coming in as well. The important thing, though, I believe, to get Ho Chi Minh City in particular, and we'll get there potentially before Hanoi, of course, is to promote repeat visitation in this market. We need to see a lot of visitors coming back more so, and the only way that's going to come back is by the market certainly being successful in promoting itself. I mean, we've got the foodie tours, which is getting so much press globally now. The golfing opportunities that we have here, some of the golf courses are world class. The casinos, how's that going to certainly pan out with the lifting of the ban, albeit with restrictions for locals to gamble? Will this open up integrated resorts? Will this shape how we're seeing development, particularly in some of the coastal areas of Vietnam in the future? But overall, yeah, we're very bullish on the markets. We think there are many bright spots here for Vietnam. So please take the time to read that when it arrives in your inbox. We're about to, that's all from me. So thank you for attending the event as well.